Hello and welcome to the Indian Express News Analysis. So today's date is 8 December of 2018 and here we discuss all the important news articles which are very much relevant from an exam point of view. So let's have a quick look at all the important articles that we have to discuss today. Before that, if you're not subscribed to my channel Military Mantra, please subscribe because here you get daily The Hindu analysis along with Indian Express analysis in Hindi and English. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time a new video is uploaded. So the first article over here on the left side is about mob lynching. As you understand, recently in the Bulandshahr, which is located in UP, there was an incident wherein lot of mob, that means people gathered around a police station and actually killed an SHO officer. And the reason why it was done was because of the cow vigilantism which is actually growing in this particular region. And somewhere in this article, the question being asked is, it is the responsibility of a state to actually maintain the law and order, and the political entity should not get involved into such matters wherein the whole criminal justice system is actually getting affected. So these are the questions being asked in this particular article. Below which the next article is very important. Here we'll discuss how is air pollution directly affecting the public health. So it's a very important article. A lot of statistics are involved. We'll discuss this in detail. And the below article is basically about Iceland. So you just need to know the location of it. As you can see, this is located in the Atlantic Ocean here. And the capital of Iceland is basically Reykjavik. And the next article over here on the center is basically quite political in nature. As you understand, there were recent election in various states. So that's the reason this article has come up. Not so important from exam point of view. That's why we will not discuss this. This article below it is basically about Kartarpur Corridor. As you understand, this corridor is basically visa-free corridor between India and Pakistan, using which people or basically Sikh community of our country can actually visit Kartarpur. And the reason why Kartarpur is very important is because the very religious shrine which was available there, because the Guru Nanak had spent his last days in this particular region. That's the reason this shrine becomes very important. This article on the red side is basically about the inclusiveness that has improved in the educational field here. You can talk about NITs, IITs. There has been a reservation for women there, even for the community like OBC, tribals. So that's the reason we need to understand how exactly is our country ready for inclusiveness when it's come to our education institutions. This article over here is about the militancy in Punjab region. As you understand, let's go back to history in 1980s. We understand some important operations like Operation Blue Star happened in 1984. In 1989, there was Operation Black Thunder. And the reason why these operations were done was to actually eliminate militancy from this Punjab region. And recently also last month, there was a grenade attack in Punjab. So the question being asked here is the militancy coming back? Is the fight between Nirankars and Sikhs coming up? So the answer to that was answered in the previous videos also, that actually such militancy is not actually coming up, and the whole grenade attack that was done previous month was actually done by an eyesight trained youths who were actually migrated to Punjab region. So this is something which you need to know. Following is the most important article over here is the below article. This is about a mission known as Mission Indradhanush. So this is basically an immunization program wherein we are providing vaccine to the small kids here so that they get immune to all the diseases that actually are very much countered by the babies, right? So let's start our discussion today. So the first article over here is basically how exactly can you quantify the health effect from air pollution, because in the WHO report, out of the 15 most polluted cities, 14 are belonging to India. So we need to definitely take some steps to actually reduce the amount of air pollution that we are generating. So first thing that you need to know is the reason why air pollution is considerably increasing. You can take an example of the construction activity which are being done in the most of the cities in India. Following with the vehicular pollution is one of the reasons, and even the stubble burning which happens in Punjab and Haryana region, which actually leads to air pollution in NCR region, and also the pollution which comes up with the thermal power plants, also somewhere reason why we have so much pollution increase in our cities. And also based on the statistics, our life expectancy, that is the amount of years that we're gonna live, is also reduced by 1.7 years just because of the availability of the air pollution in our environment. And we need to understand, we usually presume thinking that all the air pollution will actually lead to respiratory problems, but there are other problems also, like heart disease can actually increase just because of the air pollution that we counter on a daily basis. So all these non-communicable diseases like diabetes, heart diseases, we have aimed that we will try to reduce it by the end of this decade. So what we are trying to do is we are taking minor short-term steps like banning Diwali crackers, or basically increasing the fines, stopping the thermal power plants. But somewhere we need to understand we need a long-term plan. You can take an example of China, because last year the pollution was so much increased. What they did was they actually instigated a particular person known as the environmental manager. So what happens here is you're actually bringing in accountability and responsibility into one person. Because take an example of Delhi here. If pollution is increasing in a particular region, you can actually blame the municipality, you can blame the environmental board here, water board here. There are so many institutions you can blame. And what happens in this case is you are actually diluting the accountability, but wherein you bring in a account basically an environment manager here. So what happens is accountability goes to that one person, and he has to work in order to control the pollution. So this is something which you can be implemented even in India. And the next thing is India's state level disease burden initiative along with other institutions has come up with a focus on Ayushman Bharat, because the whole purpose of bringing this particular scheme is to provide the public health, and somewhere this public health will actually counter the disaster effect which comes up from the air pollution. And what we need to understand here is there's a definite link between the pollution and the public health, which we supposed to understand. And once we have understood, we need to start more and more collaboration between Ministry of Health and Environment, which is not existing right now, because right now all our schemes are basically working in silos. That means independently they have a lot of programs, but we need to understand, we need to unite and bring them under an umbrella scheme wherein we can effectively see how exactly our schemes are working. Following with the next article here is about the Indian campuses. That can be engineering colleges, art colleges, science colleges. The same problems exist. But first thing we need to understand here is the inclusiveness which is available in our universities. As you understand, now more and more women, Dalit, tribals, OBCs are represented in our universities. Also, after the 93rd Amendment Act of 2006, OBC reservation was given to allied institutions like NITs and IITs. So somewhere we are actually allowing more and more people to be represented in the higher education. But there were some talks like meritocracy is actually getting damaged, but this was actually went into the shadows. And next thing that you need to understand is the major problem that has been seen in our institution. The first problem is the teaching staff. The reason why I'm telling this is even yesterday we were discussing about NIT Uttarakhand. So there we understand almost 50% of the post of teaching staff is empty. That means we don't have the required number of teachers to actually teach them. So obviously the academic records are not going to be that good. And the next thing that we need to understand here is the infrastructure development. Because if you're talking about the engineering colleges, you need well-equipped laboratories, even the facilities which are provided to the students here, the hostel, the food, everything should be of really good optimum quality, which is not provided at present time. So what we can do exactly is, instead of bringing a lot of ITs and ITs new, I'm saying we can actually develop the existing ITs which are old and which are actually facing infrastructure woes, and also other institutions which are not NITs and ITs, but we can actually develop the infrastructure so that more and more students who are living there can actually improve the standard of education that they are getting. And the next thing what we understand here is a language problem, because when we were under the British rule, somewhere we actually tried to get the vernacular language when it comes to teaching, but that was actually removed and we started teaching in English. Even now, after 70 years or more than 70 years of independence, we somehow are still back more using English, and rather we cannot switch to vernacular language, even though there are a lot of programs wherein we are actually teaching in different languages. And the next thing is about a lot of reforms being taken in education. As we understand, there is UGC getting scrapped, HECI coming in, wherein more and more nominated people come in. And also the regulation part is quite liberal right now. And even students have this choice-based credit system. So all we're trying to do here is we're adopting a lot of measures from the foreign universities, but we need to understand something in our mind, that we cannot be just a copycat of what other universities are doing, because our society is quite different and we need to adopt it properly. And the next article over here is about Mission Indradhanush. So this particular scheme is basically immunization of all the kids in our country. So basically when it was started, it was only for the 7 diseases like measles, polio, pertussis, tetanus, TB, diphtheria, hepatitis B. But now it has been increasing because, as you understand, as we go in future, there are a lot of diseases which is counted by all the babies in our country. So that's the reason we need to include more and more immunization and vaccine program in our country. Now, this particular scheme was implemented in 2014 by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and this immunization program was so huge that such kind of programs have never happened in any part of our world. And the next thing that we understand here is the mortality rate, like the number of kids who are dying within the age of say 5 years are quite increasing. That's the reason we have brought the immunization program. And also what we need to understand here is we only started with 7 vaccine, but we need to understand we in the future we definitely need to increase the number of vaccine that is being provided under this mission. And that's the reason we are updating this particular mission into intensified mission Indradhanush. The reason why we're actually improving this is because there are some challenges here. The first challenge is basically the coverage, because right now it is not available in every village. As you understand, the ad wherein Amitabh Bachchan comes in and says the epic dialogue of Do Boon Zindagi Ke. So it's the same reason here. It has to go to every person. The general awareness has to be created. The coverage has to be improved. That's the reason we are switching to intensified mission Indradhanush. And the second thing we need to understand here is to include more and more vaccines in this particular basket of immunization. In this case, our kids will be more and more immune to all the diseases which happens. And the third thing that we need to understand here is the quality and the logistics which is required to actually implement this particular scheme. Because even in last month we were discussing about polio, because there are some stains found which can actually cause polio instead of actually protecting you. We have discussed that even in our previous videos also. So this is something we need to understand, that the quality of the vaccine that we provide has to be of the optimum quality. And the next article over here on the page 14 from the world is basically about the Paris. As we understand, the riots are starting because the middle class is somewhere not happy with the democracy and the government which is actually ruling there. They have a lot of problems because the the movement which is happening here, there are a lot of reasons, because this particular movement is leaderless movement. And whenever a leaderless movement comes in, there are various demands. Like some are talking about the allowances that has to be provided, the unemployment allowance. Some are talking about new schemes to be implemented for health and education. Some are fighting because the price of the diesels have increased. So there are varieties of demands why these riots are happening here. So this particular riot is known as Yellow Vest movement, and somewhere you need to understand, you can connect it to various movements that are happening in various countries like Iran, Hong Kong. And one thing that you definitely need to understand here is the government has to take immediate measure. Like right now they have reduced the amount of prices on the diesel, but they have to actually work on all the schemes that they actually promised. And the next article over here is about from the Poland. As you understand, the negotiations are happening. The rule book is getting framed for the Paris Climate Agreement, which was signed in 2015. So here we are trying to discuss about the finances which will be funded by the developed countries. And even if you go back in past, we see the track record of developed countries. They actually somehow does not actually pay the finances, because all the money that is going to get collected, that is somewhere around $100 billion, is not enough. That is something which you need to understand, because what we are trying to achieve is to control the temperature of the earth well below 2 degrees Celsius. And even in IPCC report, it has been said that 1.5 is also not safe. So we need to understand that we just not need to mitigate this particular effect, we also need to adapt, because this effect has already started. You can take an example of Kerala flood, Gaja cyclone, Titli cyclone. There are so many things that are happening, and the reason why this is happening is because of the increase in the temperature. The global warming is increasing, and this is the reason why climate change is the next big thing, and we need to actually encounter it, address it in the first place. And the next article here is about OPEC. As you understand, this is basically oil producing and exporting countries here. They recently had a meeting, and what we need to understand here is the Qatar has come out, but we need to understand the Qatar is playing a major role here only in the natural gas field, but somehow they can actually influence a lot of people who are part of OPEC. So what we need to understand here is, in the previous month there was a slight decline in the amount of prices of the crude oil. But after this discussion, what they have ended up is they are going to reduce the amount of supply that they had. That means if you go by the supply demand graph here, if the supply reduces and the demand remains same, the prices are going to go high. So this is something which you need to understand. We need to have the enough amount of strategic reserves that if in case of any crisis also, we don't run out of the fuel, right? So let's just discuss everything that we discussed today on the editorial page. We discussed about the mission Indradhanush, and then we discussed about the Indian campuses, about their inclusivity, and then the health effect of the air pollution. So that's all for today, guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Thank you and have a nice day. Jai Hind.